Hello and welcome to BetterTech. I'm Colin McCarthy, your new host. With a foundation in IT and a history of guiding companies through technological evolution, I'm here to explore the dynamic world of tech with you. From spearheading the growth of a small enterprise's IT department and managing global teams, I've seen firsthand how technology transforms business. At BetterTech, we'll dive into these transformative trends, connecting with thought leaders to uncover insights that propel success and innovation. Let's get started today with a guest who really knows the intersection of technology and business. Hi, Eric. Welcome to BetterTech.
Hi, Colin. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're excited to have you here. And to start off, could you share a bit about your journey into becoming a CIO and your insights into the digital transformation landscape, particularly in mid-market organizations?
Sure. So my background is originally in finance. And when I entered the workforce, I joined Deloitte Consulting and I was doing SAP implementations for Fortune 500s. And slowly more from being an implementation expert, financial expert on digital transformation into managing those projects, and then progressed up in my career until chief information officer. And currently I'm a chief information officer with Net at Work, which is a technology advisor. It's one of the largest technology advisors for the small and medium business segment in North America. And I run our fractional chief information officer group, where we provide fractional part-time CIOs for our clients that are responsible for planning and executing digital transformation.
Wow, you must have seen a lot of those transformations over the years, and certainly with working with SAP for a lot of those large organizations. I know anecdotally that those projects can be very difficult and provide a lot of challenges.
Difficult, yes. Challenges for sure. When you're working with large organizations like the enterprise level segment, their challenges and the scope of the projects are enterprise in breadth and cost and budget, etc.
Yeah. So what are the distinct challenges and opportunities that mid-market organizations encounter when they're going through these digital transformations compared to those larger organizations that we know of?
Yeah, so I think that's a great segue, but let's start first with like defining what digital transformation is, because a lot of the Fortune 500s get what it is and they understand it, but you talk to mid-market and they think they're too small for digital transformation. And it's kind of a glamorous type sounding word. There's mystique to it. So I really try to break down what digital transformation even is.
Yeah,
And
that's really good, because it's 2023 and you hear of digital transformation. It's like, isn't everything digital? This isn't, 1993.
and that's a fair point. I tell people though, for mid-market organizations, I walk into a lot of them, and yes, the current year is 2023, but you walk into them and they're still operating at like it's 1995. And I don't mean that lightly. They truly are operating with their processes and their people and how their people are interacting and dealing with customers and dealing with systems, and the systems are antiquated. So when I demystify and break down what a digital transformation is, I define it as it's focused on streamlining and making your processes more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's about enabling your employees to excel and giving them the best tools, the best training, the right metrics to help them get there. And then the third part is getting rid of all the paper, the actual digitization of taking all those papers and everything that comes out of the printer and putting it up in the cloud and making it digital. And so really, when I start talking about what the elements are of digital transformation, it's about the people, it's about the processes, it's about getting rid of paper. And a lot of people think digital transformation means you need to buy technology,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really not. It's really about making yourself more efficient, giving your people the best tools and capabilities to do their job, and getting paper out the door.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It is all about integrating that new technology that's out there or people have moved to with those existing business processes. Are there any good examples of how this integration has significantly improved efficiency or innovation in any of those mid-market organizations? solutions?
Yeah, so what we typically see as a best practice and what we see, well, let me start with the worst case scenarios. People often go tech first. We need to buy technology to solve our issues. If I buy this, this is going to make it better. And, technology, when it comes to digital transformations, is really facilitating the digital transformation. In a lot of companies, okay, we're going to buy this technology, it's going to make it better, and it usually fails. Why? Because they didn't focus on what are we trying to solve? Like, what are the business outcomes? What are the issues we're trying to work out? How are we going to make our processes more efficient? Or how are we going to give our people better tools and capabilities so that this is a win? And what they'll do is they'll buy the technology and then try to swap the technology out and do the same thing that they're doing today. And it usually ends up as a disaster, because who wants to buy something, put a new tech system in, and have the same process, same result? Your people are doing the same types of thing, different tech system. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so what we typically see, like from a process standpoint, like in terms of implementing technology and starting digital transformations, is first saying, what do I need? What should my future process be? And then going out and finding the technology to support that.
Yeah, it is it is very sad when you hear of business leaders just choosing technology because they always think that technology is the answer, when it is an underlying business process, which is, and I was talking to some people the other day who were going through a big change, and it's like, we're going to have to work on your process because there isn't a technology, or technology isn't going to be the answer. It's not going to fix everything if the business process and the information that's being transmitted between teams is broken. We everybody always wants to look at a software program or a technology to solve those problems, but it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And, it's everybody thinks it's their ticket out of their issues, and it really isn't. You're wasting your money, you're making an investment. And, it's interesting what you said is a lot of people think that, oh, I'm using antiquated technology, I got to buy something new. Well, half the time we'll get organizations coming to us saying our tech is awful, blah, 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 and we get the impression it's old, it's outdated. But then we go in and we start uncovering that they're actually using the latest and greatest technology systems in terms of warehouse management
Yeah.
systems, ERPs. And we're like, well, wait, you're not using it correctly. And that's why you're having these issues. The good news is you don't even need to buy anything new. We need to, because you already have the best stuff, you're just not using it right.
Yeah. I've seen that in a number of scenarios where, and that's where this sort of change part is so important, because people will buy that piece of technology but not fully support it, not fully implement it, not use all of the bells and whistles. It's like, buying a Ferrari and only ever driving it to the store. You've got to rent a track for the day and really use it to all of its capabilities and functions.
And that's a great analogy. There's no sense in, buying a Ferrari if you're not going to take it out, get it up above 100 and see how it goes.
Yeah. So when we think about change and how crucial it is in digital transformation, how do you approach gaining support and buy-in from various levels within those mid-size organizations, specifically considering the diverse needs and perspectives that the business will have?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because change management is one of the most underappreciated aspects and components of digital transformations. It's one of the main reasons why digital transformations fail. And so what we typically see as best practice and what we recommend is when organizations go through a formal change management program, either bring on consultants or hire somebody internally who knows how to deliver change management. There is a process and a defined methodology for how you take people through this. And what we see is, starting first is with gathering feedback from stakeholders. No one likes to be told, you have to go do this. This is the way now. Everybody wants to be heard. So first is having a stakeholder meeting and getting insight and all the opinions of your stakeholders. And this is really key for mid-market organizations, like for manufacturers, for instance. The executive team might have their perceptions, whereas if you go and talk to the shop floor workers, they may have a very different feedback on what you actually need and what they need to do their jobs. And so it's really starting off on getting stakeholder feedback, developing a change management plan, developing a communication plan, keep communicating throughout the process and have expectations defined. And that's really, and a lot of organizations don't do it. Even the large organizations like Fortune 500s, when you're implementing Fortune 500 enterprise scale technology in digital transformations, they typically underinvest in this. And that's one of the reasons that these initiatives fail so often, unfortunately.
Right, yeah, and it's interesting how you mention the shop floor work. You do really need to engage everybody fully from the top and the bottom, because the view of how the company, the systems, the processes for the person that I always use the term at the coal face, their view, who are using things day to day and are coming up with those strategy or those challenges, are completely different to the leadership above that might have, they'll have their business strategy and their idea for change, but might not have a full understanding of all of the day-to-day ins and outs that's going to be impacted by any of these digital transformations.
Completely agree.
So obviously the board, the CEO, and the CFO are going to want to see a measure of success and the very important return on investment for their digital transformation initiatives in the mid-market settings. Are there any specific metrics or KPIs that are particularly relevant and the company should be looking at when they're going through this process?
For me, it's less about the specific KPIs and metrics, because you have very different businesses that are going through this. You have nonprofit organizations, manufacturers, distributors, you have healthcare organizations, you have like so different. But typically what I tell people is, do you have a strategic plan? Like, what is your vision that you're trying to get to for your company? Where are you trying to be in 5 or 10 years? And, half mid-market organizations have something. They have a vision. We have a strategic plan. We have strategies to get to the vision. We have goals and KPIs and metrics. And that's great, because I tell people, tie your digital transformation to your strategic plan. Your digital transformation should be part of the strategies to enable you to get to your future vision, whether that's a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year vision, whatever. But when we talk to these mid-market organizations, the other half don't have any. And, usually they don't admit it to me. Like, I'm talking to the business owner or to a member on the board, for example, and I'm saying, so where are you guys trying to be in 5 years or 10 years? Where's your vision? You get a wishy-washy answer, and you're like, all right, I'm not going to call you out on it, but we can probably fine tune this a little bit more. And I say, like, where are you trying to be revenue-wise? Where are you trying to be customer-wise? The number of customers, the average deal size, for example, depending on the industry you're in. Are you expanding to new geographic markets? Are you opening a new distribution center overseas? Whatever. What are the fine details of your future vision? And when we really see organizations succeeding is when they start taking those metrics as defined in the strategic plan in their vision and tying them to the digital transformation initiatives. Because at the end of the day, I'm a finance person at the end of the day, and I'm always telling our people, what's the business case for you buying this technology system? What's your payback period? What's the ROI? Show me the business case. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're making multi-million-dollar investments sometimes, and there's no business case. And to us, it's really crazy that you're making such a large investment of time and material and opportunity cost, and they haven't gotten through that thought process. And a lot of times we get the impression, really, and it's not even we're getting the impression, it's the true facet of it. They don't have the expertise to really plan for a digital transformation, develop business cases. The CFO and the finance team aren't well equipped for those types of business case development procedures.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about the strategy and companies needing that. I was talking to a company the other week and asked them what was their utopia goal. If they could snap their fingers and everything was how they wanted, what would that look like? And then ask them what was achievable, what was in play at the moment, and how could we help in the interim to get them to where they want to be. But it's right. Companies need that strategic roadmap. They need to know where they're going, because often, in my experience, through these digital transformations, it's a stepping stone. You have to go from one technology to the other, or they're stacked on top of each other. So you have to break down that change process to get to where you eventually want to be. You can't, another brilliant analogy that I've heard, and from an experienced colleague who I work with and I've used many times, it's like changing the tires on a car as it's going down the road. You can sort of do that, but when you start to change the engine at the same time of changing the tires down the road, then it becomes unmanageable. And any digital transformation will fail. Talking about failures, what technological strategy or implementation didn't go as expected, and what lessons were learned from that experience?
Yeah, unfortunately, we find that failures are actually more common than the successful ones. McKinsey did a study a couple years ago that found up to 70% of digital transformations fail.
Yeah, yeah,
70%.
it doesn't surprise me. I've heard of companies doing huge rollbacks of
Yes.
a technological transformation, and that is devastating for the business.
It is. And, there's a bunch of different reasons for it. But one of the key reasons that I see is they don't have the expertise to plan and execute this. And so, 20 years ago, a chief information officer was really responsible for leading the IT department, right? But now CIOs are really responsible. They're still responsible to lead the IT department, but now they're responsible for helping set the strategy and the vision and really the innovation and streamlining processes. They've really taken the process and the people innovation areas under their helmet, because all of touched by technology. The CFO does their thing, the COO does their thing, and the CIO is really focused on driving and growing the business through transformation. They're the transformation executive, essentially. And so a lot of mid-market organizations unfortunately don't have CIOs, or they don't have a chief strategy officer or a chief transformation officer, whatever, whether full-time or part-time. And that's, not having that expertise, not having a person in that seat. These organizations, the CFO's never done this before, for example, or
Yeah.
they've been through 2 ERP implementations in their past life, and they know I don't want to do anything like that, because they typically are awful experiences. And so what we've seen is, like, some of these leading organizations are the ones that will invest in these capabilities and in these expertise, whether full-time or part-time, to help plan and actually bring them along the journey.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's a very good point, and an insight into that. Um, the one thing I always have found with these digital transformations, certainly when you're changing a technology stack, or adding a technology stack, improving it inside an organization, is it can sometimes increase a skills gap. How should mid-market organizations tackle the challenges of upskilling and reskilling their workforce to help keep up with these technological changes?
Yeah, so what I typically recommend organizations to do is do an assessment as to where your employees are and where they need to be. Because we often say, okay, what type of technology do we have today? What type of technology do we need to hit our vision, our strategic goals, right? But a lot of times we don't do the same for our employees. What type of employees do we have? What type of employees do we need to have 3 years, 5 years down the line? And so starting with an assessment on here's their capabilities, here's the gap between where they're at versus what we need to do, and putting together a training program. There are wonderful training platforms out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies don't invest in those training platforms, and they're not super expensive. And giving employees that type of, it's another perk to their job almost. And putting it, learning as part, a lot of organizations need to change their culture to a more learning focused culture. People get upset that employees only come in, they do their job, they leave. There's, day in, day out. Well, providing them learning and development really can help start changing that.
Right, yeah. Training is such a huge part of any organization. There's a meme I keep seeing on going around LinkedIn, I think, where the CFO is saying, if we
Yeah.
spend money on training, what happens if our staff leave? And the CEO is like, well, what happens? What happens if we don't invest in the training and then they still leave? So yeah, I've always been a big advocate of training, carving out time in somebody's workday to make training part of their role and responsibilities. And if they are in IT, getting a lot of those technological certifications that are out there.
Well, and it doesn't even need to be technology focused. It could be like, you have the IT team that, yes, they absolutely need IT certifications, and, there's new skills to be learned as you're implementing technology systems, but also on the process end, you have change management certifications. You have certifications related to Six Sigma, for example, right? And so giving people those opportunities really starts changing the dynamic at these organizations. And we talk about digital transformation, but it's really business transformation. And all sorts of skill sets are needed to deliver this. And like I say, you don't want to operate like you are today. You don't want to make all these investments and go through all the pain just to be doing the same thing that you're doing today in 5 years. And so part of that is, how do we get our people better trained, get them the best tools to excel at their jobs? And that is huge.
Yeah. Certainly with all of the updates that are coming to key applications, if you're looking at a collaboration platform, Office 365 or Google Workspace, there's a lot of new functionality being added to that in Excel or Google Sheets. It's good to allow your users and give them the training and the resources to learn how to do VLOOKUPs, learn how to do, app script, or use Power BI or AppSheet to automate and improve a lot of their, look at the way that their internal processes are being done. And I think that is a really good way to keep retention or retain your workforce, by constantly, developing them and training them and giving them a sense that they're still moving forwards in their career and they're learning new skills.
And even to your point about, you're talking about VLOOKUPs and BI tools. When organizations go through digital transformations, there's the process efficiencies and the workflow efficiencies that are gained. So you don't have this whole team of AP clerks having to go in and manually type everything out, or, okay, I got to pay this invoice. This is over $10,000. I got to run down the hallway and get, this vice president's approval to send it. And so, because they implemented an AP automation platform, for example, that does all that. And so they can start working on higher, value added functions. And so that's, a lot of people get scared about the change aspect, but how do we train our employees to understand the change, and that they're going to be focusing, you hate tracking the vice president down saying, can you sign this so I can upload it, to using the scanner, and, blah, 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 blah. That's really, really powerful stuff, is when they start working on that higher value added stuff. But first, you have to train them.
Right. Yeah. And that AP is a perfect example where I have heard of horrible stories where, the vendor would email in the PO or the invoice that had to be approved. Then AP would email it as an attachment to somebody else. They would have to download it, scan it, print it, scan it, sign it, send it back, and then it would come back as another email attachment. And I'm like, why isn't that, just in an automated system where everything's being done online and there's a whole, approval process, and you've got great auditing and tracking, rather than, all of your auditing tracking being in somebody's poor mailbox? What happens when they go on vacation, or heaven
Yeah.
forbid they leave and go somewhere else. But it's terrifying to think that there are, at the top we talked about, those legacy processes and some legacy technologies that are still being used. It's almost like you're putting something in one of those manila envelopes, you put it on the trolley and it gets pushed around the office and goes to the mail room and then gets sent out to somebody else to sign. It is like we're operating in some places it's like they're operating in the 1950s.
Well, there's plenty of places still operating like that because I've been to a few of those places earlier this year, and that's just how they're operating. But going back to the AP, the accounts payable function, you could almost do a master class on digital transformation for AP departments alone.
Yeah.
They're right for everybody. Every organization has to pay bills. And most organizations could very much streamline the way that they pay, develop workflows, and not overpay on stuff or pay for stuff
Yeah.
they didn't actually receive. And there's a whole master class to be had on that.
Yeah. And that's how we all operate in our daily lives.
Yes.
We're all paying everything online. We're not receiving invoices in the mail. We're not writing checks and then sending it back where it has to be opened and then processed. If we can do that in our daily lives, every business needs to be able to do that. So,
Completely
um,
agree.
looking forward, what emerging technologies do you believe will sufficiently impact mid-market organizations in the upcoming years?
Yeah, so there's two answers to that question. The first is we still see so many mid-market businesses not using technology of today. For example, they're using ERP systems that were developed 25, 20 plus years ago. They're using warehouse management systems with pick tickets. Instead of walking around the warehouse, there's a barcode and you scan it with a gun, a barcode scanner. No, they're
Yeah.
walking around with a paper ticket or something on their clipboard that says, okay, go this aisle and pick this, and you're going to pick 5 of these and go put it in this box. And so for the mid market, like a lot of the stuff that we see at the Fortune 500 and the enterprise level still has not totally trickled down to the mid market because mid market organizations, like I said, they don't know what they don't know. There's more resistance to change in some industries. We typically see construction as a laggard industry in terms of their willingness to change, as opposed to like a professional service industry. So I think the first answer is a lot of standardized solutions that are available to mid-market organizations they're not taking advantage of.
Right.
The other thing, I get a lot of business owners and executives asking me about AI. It's
Yeah.
huge right now. And
Yeah.
so everybody's like, I had one guy tell me he wants to, literally with his team on the phone with me, I want to replace all my people with AI if I could. And
Oh
I'm
my
like, okay,
God.
well that's kind of strange that you're mentioning that, but we all laughed it off, but I think he was half serious. But everybody's focused on AI and solving issues with AI, and I'm like, okay, what business issues do you have that we can solve? And there's probably areas that AI can solve those for. So let's go back to our AP example, the AP department. Well, a lot of AP automation tools have artificial intelligence built into them.
Hmm.
So you get an invoice into your email inbox, your AI, your tool that has an AI component reads the company that sent the invoice, they read the amount, they do a three-way check that's with your ERP system to check to see, okay, did we receive this? Was it within the same quality? And then they'll create the transaction in your ERP system for human to potentially go back and review and approve,
Hmm.
or if it's below a certain amount. But that whole process where it's reading the invoice, it's taking the amount, it's checking, that's all powered by artificial intelligence. And a lot of organizations don't realize the tools they're using today have AI technology built in.
Yeah. AI did not magically appear 12 months ago when
Yes.
OpenAI released Chat GTP. Large language modeling and machine learning AI, it's not true AI, it's just the ability to manage large amounts of data better and process it, have been around for a long time. OCR, object character recognition with invoice scanning and document scanning has been around for a long time. Google Workspace has had parts of that since 2017 with Smart Compose and Smart Complete. So that technology, it isn't new, and a lot of it has been around for a long time. But I don't think it's an employee replacement. In some places, it might be an employee replacement, and that may happen. I think it's an employee improvement or a job improvement. It will, if you can process your invoices quicker, then you get paid quicker, your clients get invoiced quicker, your business is more productive, as we're using the AP analogy again. I think it's a way of improving business as opposed to replacing people. And
Yeah,
I really like using, Duet AI in Google Workspace. It allows me to be a lot more productive. It's not taking away my job. It helps me to be better at my job.
yeah, and it kind of what you said with how AI, you have these AI chatbots right now that have come out in the past 24 months. And for me personally, it's revolutionized the way I work. It's totally revolution the way it's the way I work. I'm writing some document. Okay, can you read through this and tell me a better way to write it? And I'm a fairly decent writer. Almost always writes better than I can. And it's actually surprising how good the technology has gotten. And I also like what you mentioned on improvement. A lot of people see this as we're going to replace people, and it's really not the case. And that's how a lot of people say, okay, well, we're going to implement this solution and we're going to get rid of all these people. And it's like, well, actually, there still needs to be this human process here. But instead of doing what they're doing today, they can be doing this and this and this is really what you want them to be doing, but they can't do it because they have to go down the hall and get the vice president to sign this and then
Yeah.
go to the printer and scan it in. Yeah. So I very rarely do I see people's jobs getting cut because of what we're doing. It's actually what we're doing is enabling them to do what they really want to do, but you never have the time to do it because you're just
Yeah.
chasing the daily operational endeavors of your day.
Yeah. It's, to me, it's very similar to the initial adoption of software as a service, SaaS-based applications. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I would hear a lot of people want to hold on to their on-premise exchange. They didn't want to move to Office 365. They didn't want to move to Google Workspace because they thought it was going to be taking jobs away. It would take away the backup administrator, the storage administrator, the email exchange patch management administrator. I don't think it was. I don't think it has. Moving to those SaaS-based applications, Google Workspace, for example, has allows companies to focus on the business and managing the business rather than managing the technology that's required to run the business.
Mhm.
So I think there's a part of that in AI as well, and people as I guess becoming uh, aware of it, or getting used to it, and finding where it fits in their business. The one thing that I always have top of mind is security. It's a major
Yeah.
concern for everybody, and certainly through any digital transformation process. What strategies would you recommend for mid-market organizations to protect their digital assets and data?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, we are continuing to see more of an uptick in cyber threats, cyber attacks, cyber incidents now than we were seeing 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's becoming more prevalent. And I think, first of all, organizations like executive teams, boards, business owners, for the mid-market really need to educate themselves. And it doesn't take that long, but a lot of times we'll have people say, okay, well, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing security training, so we're never going to have an incident. It's like, well, no, there's always a risk, right? I
Yeah.
can get in my car, turn my lights on, put my seatbelt on. I could put a football helmet on, but I'm still going to maybe there's the risk I'm going to get in a car wreck, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's always the risk. And it's the same thing with driving your car as is with cyber. You could be doing everything and spending tons of money and do everything right. And if somebody wants to really get in, they're probably going to find a way in. And so, first is that educational piece is how do you manage the risk of cyber threats? And the second part of that I tell organizations is make sure you have cyber insurance. There's a
Okay.
lot of mid-market businesses that don't have cyber insurance. And when you go and start working with an insurance broker to get cyber insurance, they have a checklist of compliance items that you need to show that, yes, I can do these 35 items, or else I'm not going to be able to get insurance, or it's going to be so expensive that I'm going to even question if I want to pay the insurance to begin with. And so working with an insurance broker is like huge to get that. And that's a good baseline step is get the insurance broker, get cyber insurance. And not only does that get you to a certain level of compliance, it really should.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a checklist as to what they want you to get to. If there was an incident that were to occur, when you contact your insurance broker, they have relationships and assets available to come in and help you manage that and potentially negotiate that. So not only are you getting the insurance, but you're getting potentially resources to help you with that incident. The other part of this is, do penetration testing. That's huge. Train your employees. That is huge. I go out to
Mm-hmm.
visit our clients and they're all mid-market clients. And, I'll go up and ring the doorbell and I have people just open the door for me. I walk in, no one asks me. I mean, half the time I don't even ask, who are you here to see? They might not have like a formal administrative assistant that's manning the desk, that's checking people. And now they might not have that. I'm in your building. No one, you just open the door, and I look like this. I look like, okay, well, he might need to be here. And then I'm walking around, people have their laptops open, they're not frozen. There's this whole security element that people are totally unaware of when it comes to both cyber threats and even physical threats. I could walk out with a couple of laptops. You never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I've actually seen that done years ago back in London. We're in a large office building. The company below us did have that. Somebody tailgated into the business. The person had one of those luminous jackets on. People just thought he was a maintenance worker. They came in at lunchtime. They walked around the office. They picked up a couple of laptops and a couple of phones and just walked straight out the door. It was only when people came back and they couldn't find their stuff and they went to the videotapes that they had for the cameras, they actually saw what happened, but it was too late then. So yeah.
Another thing that we're starting to see organizations needing, and Net at Work, we're even providing this as part of what we're doing within the SMB space, is we're providing fractional chief information security officers. So not only do you need like an MSP, like a lot of mid-market, they're using MSPs and they're focusing on like the typical MSP focus areas, but really like who's writing your compliance policies, who's building out your disaster recovery and business continuity, who's actually testing it. Most organizations may have those. Have you ever tested them? Did you
Yeah.
use it during COVID? And they're not. And so what we're starting to see is the chief information security officer is starting to trickle down into the medium space. It's still not as super prevalent as the CIOs and the fractional CIOs in that space, but that is one thing that we're starting to see even with here at Net at Work is people are very interested in that. But often as it happens, they're interested in it too late, right?
Yeah. And it's not enough just to get that cyber insurance. You do need all those policies and controls internally because if you make everybody in your company a global admin because it's just easier for everybody to have access to everything, that cyber insurance isn't going to pay out because you're not going to have good control, sensible controls in place. And there have been a few stories about insurance companies not paying out.
Oh
Or
yeah.
refusing to pay out because the standard of care wasn't kept. It's almost like going back to that car analogy. If you've got car insurance but you don't maintain that car and there's something mechanically wrong with it and you drive it, it could be that the insurance company wouldn't actually pay out.
Exactly. Or you wait to contact them way too late. And I had an organization that came across my desk. They contacted their insurance broker 9 months after the event occurred. It's a pretty
Wow.
long time. Yeah.
I actually saw a news article today. I haven't read it fully, but a hacker group had actually reported a company to the SEC because the company hadn't disclosed that they had been breached, which
Yeah,
is
that's bad PR right there.
yeah, that's a whole nother podcast topic
Yeah, so
to
I'll
to
refrain
discuss
from
that.
I didn't see that article, but that's incredible. I don't even know what
Yeah.
to say about that.
Yeah. I've got it's one of those times where you're scrolling through your news feed and you see
Yeah.
the headline. It's like, I'll book that mark for later.
Yes.
So finally, I've really enjoyed this chat for the last 40 minutes or so. But what advice would you give a mid-market organization as they're at the early stages of their digital transformation journey?
Yeah, so there's a couple key points that I tell people is first, make sure that your digital transformation and first make sure you understand what it is. It's about streamlining your processes, it's about enabling your people, it's about digitizing paperwork. Don't make it about the technology. You're probably not going to be successful. If you focus on those other three areas with technology facilitating that, then you'll probably be way more likely to be successful. The second thing is take your strategic plan and make sure that your digital transformation and the initiatives within that align with your strategic plan. That's a huge thing. You're going in this direction with your plan. You want to make sure your digital transformation's going in that direction as well to support you. And a key element of that is strategic planning, having the vision, having the strategies, having an IT strategic plan, and having an IT roadmap, which is a huge tool for organizations to use to help plan. It's a planning tool. Okay, what types of initiatives are we going to be doing over this 3-year period, over this 5-year period? How much is it going to cost? Because a lot of times I get organizations saying, we're going to do this, this, and this. And I'm going, okay, that's great. You make 55 million a year in revenue. You're doing $5 million worth of investments, just ballpark figures. And their eyes get real big and they have no idea. So, that's another element. And Net at Work, we just put out this phenomenal white paper about how to come up with technology roadmaps for the SMB market. We just put it out this summer. So that's focused on SMBs, which we've gotten a lot of good feedback on. The third thing is you're going on a digital transformation journey. Make sure you have the right companions for your journey. And I would never re-roof my house myself. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to fly my plane when I'm flying out of my home, Cleveland, Ohio, to New York. I would never fly the plane. I can't do that. And so I tell people digital transformations are hard. 70% of them typically fail. So chances are you're probably going to fail to meet your business objectives. Get the right people in the right seats. Get somebody who has A, the time, and B, the experience on how to plan and execute these implementations, whether that's a chief transformation officer, a chief strategy officer, a CIO, et cetera. Make sure you have the right companions for your journey. That's key.
Yes, yeah. It is very difficult to go through a transformational journey and do your own job at the same time. You need to have a strategic, good partner to help you through that, and to be fully focused on it and fully fully committed to help you with everything that's required on the way. So,
well, and there's two parts of it. A lot of people are good with coming up with strategies. Oh, I can come up with strategies all day. When it comes to the execution and having the knowledge to do change management and business process redesign and selecting the right systems and technologies for the future processes that you want, whoa, that's a whole different ballgame. And what we do find is organizations, research even shows, really good with coming up with strategies. Execution wise, they usually are not good at obtaining their objectives. They usually fail on that. So that's the other thing, is you need somebody who knows both how to do the strategy and execution piece.
Yeah, it's very, very wise. So, well, thank you, Eric, again for joining us for the BetterTech podcast and giving us all of your insight into digital transformation.
Thank you, Colin. It's been a pleasure.